Well, hello, thank you for watching, and welcome to this series devoted to applying conservative exegesis to biblical texts relevant to the topic of hell. Since hell is an English word and not Hebrew or Greek, and since it may or may not correspond to a variety of different Hebrew and Greek words, and especially since theology is not done best at a mere word level, this study will focus on answering a broader question. Instead of just asking, which verses have the word hell in them and what do I think they mean, the question should be, what view emerges when one asks the question, what does the whole counsel of Scripture say about what happens to the unrepentant, unredeemed wicked? After all, if you think of it, if one of the main messages of Christianity is that Jesus saves, then we should know what he saves us from. Well, hello, welcome back to Every Verse on Hell. I want to talk about the rich man and Lazarus story. I find that a lot of people see this as a really relevant to the topic story, and I'm going to make the case that it's almost completely irrelevant to the final fate of the wicked for two main reasons. Number one, there are a lot of literary clues that this is a parable, not a literalistic story. So I wouldn't glean from it any descriptions of what hell is literalistically like. Point number two, you could be a universalist, an annihilationist, or an advocate of eternal conscious torment. All three of those could take this parable literalistically. And the main point of that is because since it doesn't disambiguate between these three views, because it's not actually about the final fate of the wicked. It's about a guy who dies, another guy who dies, but the guys are in Hades. The rich man's brothers are still alive. We read from other parts of the Bible that there will be a general resurrection of the dead, a judgment of the living and the dead, and that's clearly not what's happening right here. So this is not the final fate of the rich man. He's in Hades, a place where even King David assumes that he will go. So it's not only a parable, it's not about the final fate of the wicked. So you could be a universalist and still, improperly, take this literalistically and say, well, he's literalistically in a place with fire and agony, but he won't be there forever. You could take this parable literalistically and be an advocate of eternal conscious torment. He's in agony here. He'll have his day in court on the final day of the judgment, right, where he'll be resurrected from the dead, and then he'll just be sent right back. Well, he wouldn't be sent right back there because even Hades would be thrown into the lake of fire. So there will be some kind of change. Or you could be an annihilationist or conditionalist and say, yeah, he's in this literalistic place of torment, but in his day of court, he'll be sentenced to death and then he'll die. And that'll be his eternal punishment. So the fact that this story, even if you take it literally, doesn't disambiguate between these three views, in my mind makes it largely irrelevant if the main point of looking at this story is to find out which of these three views is true. So in that regard, it's not helpful at all. But I'm just going to show you some things. First of all, okay, here we are. This story starts with, in the Greek, a certain man, which is to me a literary clue that this is definitely a parable. You see this in Luke 14:16, Luke 15:11, and Luke 16:1. When Jesus is telling other parables, he starts them with a certain man. And you see that at the beginning of the story of the rich man and Lazarus. A certain man, a certain man, a certain man, a certain man. There was a rich man in English, but there was a certain man is the way it starts in Greek. So to me, this is a literary clue that's actually pretty rock-solid evidence that it's a parable. Jesus starts his parables with, there was a certain man in Luke routinely. And that's exactly how he starts it here. There's another pretty solid argument to be made for why it's a parable. We find the beginnings of that in Mark 4:33. With many such parables he spoke the word to them, as they were able to hear it. He did not speak to them without a parable, but privately to his own disciples he explained everything. Okay, so if he's with his disciples and just his disciples, he'll speak plainly. But when he's with other people, or with his disciples and other people, like a mixed group, then he won't. He'll speak to them in parables. And he does it for a reason. He does it on purpose. Matthew 13:34. All these things Jesus said to the crowds in parables. Indeed, he said nothing to them without a parable. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. Okay, so Jesus on purpose speaks only in parables to the crowds. All right, so then the question comes down to, okay, when he tells the story of the rich man and Lazarus, who is with him? Is he with just his disciples, or are other people around? In the beginning and the lead up to this story, we see there are Pharisees there. In fact, it could be argued that he tells this as a response to them. So he may be speaking mostly to Pharisees, not only to his disciples. Luke 16:14, the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all these things, and they ridiculed him. And he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. For what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of God, which, interestingly enough, correlates perfectly with one of the main themes of his story. There's a rich man who lived in luxury, but to God that kind of thing didn't matter. What mattered to God was what was going on in his heart, which you see perfectly exemplified in this story. So it's almost as if there's great literary clues that this is a parable, precisely because of the lead up to the parable itself. You see a bunch of examples of Jesus saying, anthropostis, a certain man, a certain man, a certain man. And then he's speaking directly to Pharisees. So it's almost, in my mind, it's almost certainly a parable. So let's read it. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. Okay, so where is he? He's in Hades. Like I said earlier, I think King David also expects to go to Hades. Now, there's a good side and a bad side of Hades here in this story. In the intermediate state, where after you die, but before the resurrection of the dead and general judgment of everybody, in that intermediate state, are you conscious of being in a good part of the dead or the bad part of the dead? Maybe, maybe not. The point of this parable isn't to establish any of these details, though. The point of the parable is this contrast between the way he lived in his life and the way God is treating him after he dies, because God cares about things men don't, and men care about things that God doesn't. God looks at the heart. There's a role reversal here that sort of exemplifies that and builds on this, the first shall be last and the last shall be first theme. But there's more to this parable than just this reversal and the idea that God looks at the heart. Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross from over there to us. He answered, Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. It's funny that he wants to send Lazarus. Like even in this context, he wants Lazarus to be his lackey, his servant boy. It's like, why wouldn't you volunteer to go yourself? They're your own family. It's your own brothers. Why are you sending this guy? There's something kind of to be said about how he's not actually all that repentant. Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment. Abraham replied, They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. He said to him, If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead. Okay. We see here, I think, the other main thing, and maybe the primary theme of this parable. The Pharisees, they are missing Christ the Lord. He's right in front of them. But they're missing him precisely because of the things that we can't see, the things going on in the heart. They, the Pharisees, just like the brothers, have Moses and the prophets. They should be listening to them. Moses and the prophets are in the possession of, like the Pharisees have the Moses and the prophets words. But they're missing Christ. And so you might just think, oh, but when Christ comes back from the dead, then they'll repent. Well, that's not actually what we see bearing out for everyone. Some people repent, but some don't. The rationale is already pre-framed by Christ himself before his death. If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead. This parable seems to be a lot about the main ideas of this role reversal, because God cares about things differently than men, and this idea that listening to Moses and the prophets is super important and it is related intimately with whether someone does or does not accept Christ, because this is a veiled reference even to his own upcoming resurrection from the dead. And I think that's a reasonable thing to conclude, because this is a story Jesus is telling to Pharisees who are missing him. He's right in front of them, but they don't accept him for who he is. And it's written by one of his disciples after the resurrection of the dead's already taken place. And this is a way to frame it. This is a way to frame an understanding of the fact that, yeah, Christ came back from the dead, but there were some people who rejected it, even though they were there, or near it, indirectly there, or able to talk to people who were witnesses of the resurrected Christ, etc., etc. But some repented and some didn't. And here's a rationale. It's not just true that you are a blank slate, and the more evidence is thrown your way, the more you believe. It's actually the way you respond to that evidence. If you are rejecting Moses and the prophets, even if a crazy miracle like a resurrection from the dead happens, you won't believe it, because there's actually stuff going on in the heart, which really draws those two main themes of the parable together. I think that's the main idea. The main idea is not, hey, what does the final end of the wicked look like and feel like and sound like? And let's get all the details we can, even though this isn't the final end of the wicked. This is an intermediate state. They're in Hades, and the rich man's in the bad part of Hades. It's like, that's not the main point. It's a parable, so you should follow what the main points are. And I wouldn't put any stock in saying, okay, we know for sure what the intermediate state is like from this story. Maybe, but maybe not. Like, I wouldn't put any weight to that. So anyway, you might feel disappointed. I made a whole video about the parable of rich man and Lazarus, and as far as establishing what the final end of the wicked is, this is almost a completely moot point, in my opinion. I've heard of commentators assuming it's a real story, but their arguments seem weak to me. Like the idea that he names a person. You could find something unique about almost every parable, and then you could make up a rule like, oh, well, because of this unique thing, this one's real. It's like, what? That seems like a flagrant exercise of circular logic. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, and I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.